Welcome to New Beginnings with Karin Delk, where we celebrate the creativity, courage, and wisdom of people creating change. I am so pleased to have as my guest Michelle Madison McEwan, president of Madison McEwan and Associates. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Karen.
So you and I have had some conversations around your transition from corporate America to starting your own firm. And one of my big questions is, given that you were at the helm of one of the largest nonprofit healthcare nonprofits in DC, why leave and start your own firm?
So, Karen, I consider this a journey. And so when we talked about my transition, I see it almost supernaturally. I see it as a process that has been happening for decades, but really has come to fruition in recent months. About 10 years ago, my dad passed away, and it left me wondering the point of my life. And you know, I had attained so much in terms of my job, relationships, house, everything that we're pretty much taught early on that we should be striving for. I had attained so much, but there was always this emptiness, this feeling that there's something else I'm supposed to do, something greater than just sitting behind the desk of a large organization and navigating it. And I'm not taking away from the importance of that, but there was an emptiness regardless. And so after he passed away, I went on this journey in search of the things that made me happy, the things that brought me joy, the things that I gravitated to naturally. A few months back, sitting in my office, I recognized that people just gravitated to me. They would just come into my office and sit and talk to me about the most intimate things. And I would coach them and I would direct them. And time after time, I would see their lives change and evolve. And I would see this joy that was deep within that would come to light. And sometimes they would realize that they were not in the right positions and they would leave, but they would leave in a tone that was so positive that people would not believe it. Or they would stay and they would grow and they would change within the organization and they would reach the heights of achieving greatness. And I sat back more than a year ago and said, why can't I do that for myself? So easy to go outside of yourself and see other people's greatness. But what about me? And so after my father's death, I went on this journey and I just started dabbling in different things. I started taking classes on life coaching and I became certified. I became a Reiki master. I became a meditation specialist. I would teach classes and courses. I would work with people who taught acupuncture and applied acupuncture. I would teach people about the most amazing ways to find balance and to find themselves and not to be satisfied with just what is and to be able to see themselves beyond anything imaginable and to allow them to dream and make those dreams come true. And so in October of 2014, I started my own business. I took a chance on myself because I said, how can I train someone else to take a chance and I haven't? So I started Madison McEwan and Associates. And I gathered all the resources I had gained through the years of the amazing people that I have met throughout the years. Folks who train in acupuncture and qigong and stress management and meditation, folks who do motivational speaking, talking about journaling and the importance of sitting still and figuring out what your personal life journey is. And I started approaching corporations, and really, they started approaching me. And I would test this concept. What happened if corporations actually allowed their employees to find themselves? How amazing that would be to the bottom line. Because in most organizations, it is about the bottom line.
Absolutely.
It's about producing. What happens if you change the culture to allow employees to be their best selves, to see themselves, to be able to balance themselves, not just at work, but allowing them to have the opportunity to balance themselves so much that it impacts their home life, that their entire lives are balanced. And that journey began last year, and doors began to open. And so the funny thing is, I got married, first marriage too,
Congratulations.
well, thank you, in December. And we went on our honeymoon in February. And we went to the most beautiful location in Maui. And they had these zip lining opportunities. And my husband, who's filled with adventure, said to me, I want to go for zip lining. So I immediately thought he was trying to kill me. I thought he said, she must have a great insurance policy. And he just kept talking about, I want a zip line, I want a zip line. And he knew that I was stressed about it. I don't like heights. I don't like to be just kind of free flow and allow myself to just jump off a cliff, because virtually that's what it is. And he insisted. And so the day came that we went up into the pineapple fields of Maui, all the way up. And as we were traveling, I'm thinking to myself, he's trying to kill me. And they drive so far out in my mind, even if I wanted to turn around, I would feel guilty to go back.
Right.
So we got up into the mountains of Maui, and we had to climb up over bridges and up these rickety ladders. And I said, if this isn't a journey, I don't know what is. We get up to the place where the first zip line was. And all you could see was sky. It was 300 feet above the ground. The trees were so tiny, it almost looked as if it was a picture. And when it was our turns, we zip lined together. The gentleman came up and he kept telling me instructions, and I couldn't hear him. I zoned out, and I kept saying, can you repeat that? Can you repeat that? Because he was telling us how to stop, how to move forward. And I couldn't hear him. And he said, just position your feet on the gate. I'm going to open the gate, and when I tell you to zip, just zip. And in my mind, I said, he's crazy, and my husband's crazy. And I just talked to myself. I said, you're up here, you can't turn back. So when he says zip, just hold your breath.
Just zip.
So he says zip, and I just let go. And I found myself screaming at the top of my lungs. And I just flew, screaming, and midway in, I heard this voice say to me, this is what I'm going to do with your life, if you trust me. When I say zip, let go. Even if you're afraid, even if you don't know what the outcome is. And the end result is you're going to end up on beautiful land, more beautiful than you can ever imagine. And I flew into the other side of the mountain, and I cried because I was waiting for that. I was
waiting for the voice.
I was waiting for that confirmation to trust without fear. And even if there is fear, to do it anyway. And to see what God has in store for you, what this life has in store for you. And it's greater and bigger than I could ever imagine.
Just as you coached your...
Just as I coached my staff. And so when I went back to my job, I said, today's the day. And I went in and I started preparing. I didn't resign right away. I started preparing. I put things in place. And I put March 13th down as my day of resignation. I set up my meeting with my boss. And the morning of, I realized that was the day I started at the company.
So 19 years earlier.
To the day.
Wow.
I resigned to the day. And if that's not a sign, I don't know what is. And so as of April 10th, I have been a full-time founder and owner of Madison McEwan and Associates. And over the last 3 months, it has been a journey, and I've watched opportunities and doors open. And, and it's amazing when you shift, the universe shifts.
Absolutely.
And I can't explain it. I don't want to make it seem as if there was no fear. There was plenty of fear. I feared every day right after I left my job because I made a nice salary. I have a nice life. And I said, "Are you crazy?" And before I left, I said to my husband and my mother, those are the two most important people that I take their opinion very seriously. And I said to my husband, thinking about leaving my job. And he said, about time.
Wow.
I went to my mother. And my mother, who is a nervous Nellie and is very old school, I expected her to say, why would you do that? You have a great life. My mother said, good for you.
Wonderful.
And it was like the stars and the moon and the sun was aligned. And after I left, I had to shed my clothes, my organizational, branded Michelle Madison McEwan clothes. I had to tell employees, don't reach out to me unless you're just calling to say, how are you? I'm thinking about you. I had a baby. I'm getting married. I can't hear anything about the organization, good or bad, positive or terrible. I can't. I have to completely separate to shed the company's clothes so I could put on Michelle Madison McEwan's clothes after 19 years. And I had to go through mourning and transformation and figuring out who I was and what I want and solidifying this vision I've had for the last year or so.
So let's talk about that vision because I understand and relate to everything you're talking about. I didn't do the zip lining. I'm also afraid of heights, but I lean into my fear of heights.
Right.
I would say, several times a year, just so that I do it anyway. So I relate to all that you're saying. And I left a corporate career to start my own company as well. But what is your vision? Because you have great credentials. Reiki, and I'd want to talk a little bit more about Reiki. That's a practice of, figuratively laying hands, but also moving energy so that people are aligned, their body, mind, and spirit. And then you're a life coach, so as you said, those were natural gifts that you then developed and got certification. So what is the vision for Madison McEwan Associates? What are you going to do?
So Madison McEwan and Associates is an organization that provides organizational development, coaching, and staff development. But we specialize in stress management, because we recognize that there has to be balance in any organization. So even though we do strategic planning, we do marketing, we do team building, we also provide this unique service to organizations and very large corporations to come in and bring balance into their organization. And what happens is that the employees ultimately see that the organization cares about them. It's not just being worker bees. It's not just about pleasing the clients. It's not just about, being the go-to and being available 24 hours a day to get the job done. We care about you. We care about your health. We care about your stress level. We care about what you're eating. We're caring how your family life is and that you have one. And so we offer a list of different services. We have professionals from medical doctors to DOs. We have acupuncturists. We have certified life coaches. We have motivational speakers and published authors.
Wonderful.
Who come in, who do lectures, trainings. We have doctors of communications and education. And they come from a very unique perspective of how you show up. And I've coined that phrase, how do you show up? When you walk through the door, how do you show up? Because half the time, the person that shows up is not the person you are.
Yes.
You're trying to figure that out.
Right.
We're always trying to figure that out.
I agree.
But you can't get there until you're balanced. And you can't give your best until you figure it out. And so we provide that unique service of working with the organization to allow the employees to get there, to begin to see themselves. Because ultimately, if you have a problem child within your organization, 9 times out of 10, they are unhappy.
Absolutely.
They're unhappy. And 9 times out of 10, they're in the wrong job. So instead of torturing them and them torturing you, this organization allows you to figure that out and to transition them to where they need to be, or to have them come to it themselves. And I've seen it work firsthand. The organization I left, I had the great opportunity to kind of use them as a testing case. I was allowed to do meditation at lunchtime 2 days a week, where I would have a line of employees waiting at lunchtime.
Wow.
Would spend their lunchtime, give up food and socialization to come in to get quiet. And they would tell me, it changed my day. And I knew when that became the best part of my day, it was time for me to leave.
Right. Because that's your natural gifts and talents.
That's my natural gifts and talents.
There's nothing greater, as you're saying, to identify what your natural gifts and talents are and then to utilize them.
Exactly.
Because as you say, that's where your bottom line fulfillment and joy comes from, but also there's a financial component as well.
Exactly.
Because people recognize it in you, and that's what is attracting them to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
When I see someone like a Tiger Woods, who is going through probably the most life-altering period of his life. He's trying to figure it out. I see it while he is trying to figure out what happened. And the simple activity of getting quiet and sitting with yourself and hearing your own voice of what is happening to you, what is going on, what you need to change to find balance is what's missing.
So take us through how you meditate with people to bring about this transformation, because I'm a big proponent of getting quiet. And you know, sometimes meditation involves chants, sometimes it's affirmations, sometimes it is poses and positions. So tell us about that realm, because I think it's important for people to understand.
Right. So I call it demystifying meditation.
Okay.
I met with a gentleman a couple of weeks ago who was a motivational speaker, and I said, one of the things I do is meditation. And immediately he said to me, "Isn't that Buddhist?" I said, "No, no. It's a practice, it's a self-practice of getting quiet." Now, there's various types of meditation. There's transcendental, there's mindful meditation, there's meditation that focuses on a religious aspect, from Buddhist to Hindu. But you can go into the Christian Bible. The Psalms talk about meditation of the mind. There are scriptures that talk about peace be still. And for me, meditation is my personal practice to hear my own personal voice, my connection to my higher self. And so what I do is I demystify it. I take out all of that extra chanting. That's nice, but it doesn't have to be that if you don't want it to be. So I worked with a senior citizens group, and that's a tough group. It's a tough group. And before I sat down and did meditation with them, I had to demystify it, because they immediately went to Buddhist Hinduism and, this is satanic, this is... And when I finished talking to them about the fact that this is your practice, that the voices in your head, the craziness that surrounds you, the nervousness, the anxiety, the worries that really most of the time don't even come to pass unless you don't act on a situation because you're stuck in fear. Meditation melts that away. It allows you to have some time to listen. I went to church right after my father died, and I decided I wanted to start the year off anew. And I went to a good old-fashioned Baptist church, expected to hear the old fire and brimstone service, and the minister preached to the congregation, "Get quiet." He said, "Go home and turn off the TV, turn off the radio, and get quiet." And I said, huh? And it changed my life. And I went home, and back then I was one who would have the TV and radio on, playing at the same time, because it was constant chatter, constant worries, made up things that I was making up. And I got home and I sat on my couch and I was watching the TV. The radio was also playing. The dog was running around like a maniac. And something said to me, "You said you want something different, so try something different." So I turned off the TV, I turned off the radio, I put the dog away, I laid on the couch, and one of the things he said to me, because I felt he was talking to me personally, he said, nothing may come to you in that moment. It may not come to you that night, the next day, or days ahead, but something's going to come to you.
So keep practicing.
So that night, I laid on the couch for an hour, talking to myself, thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner, mind wandering. And I kept saying, wow, is this meditation? And then you know what happened? Nothing. I got up off the couch. Went about my day. I turned back on the TV. I turned back on the radio. But that night, I went to bed. And when I was laying down, I lay down in the silence and I heard this voice say, "Trust and believe." And I said, huh? And I thought it was crazy. But it kept saying over and over again, "Trust and believe, trust and believe." And something came over me where I felt this is bigger than I could ever imagine. And that started my journey. That's when I went and became a Reiki master. And doors were opening. It wasn't even like I was seeking it. Doors were opening, one after the other.
There's confirmation and validation of, your skills, your gifts, and the opportunities opening up.
And it was time.
It was time.
It was time.
So this has been a journey for you. It unfolded from the passing of your father, seeking your higher purpose, identifying that purpose, and then implementing that purpose, and ultimately having faith beyond fear to open up your own firm.
Very true.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So with people that you help, what are some of the common mistakes that they make? You talked about them believing that it's religious or that there are certain things they need to do, and you say it's your personal practice. does that mean that you define how you want to meditate, and that's a possibility to define how you want to meditate?
I think it's more so, and I don't use the word mistake because I don't think anything is a mistake. I think
that's fair.
it's a gaining of wisdom.
I love that.
It's gaining of wisdom.
I love that.
So whenever I hear someone say, I failed at this or I failed, no, because wisdom comes with the mistakes,
Absolutely.
as you say.
Absolutely.
And so I believe it is for you to figure it out. What works for me may not work for you. And so for me, when I started meditation, I would go ask my husband. I would go in the bathroom. That was my sanctuary because I knew no one would go in there.
Right, right.
He didn't know what I was in there
Right,
doing. I was
right.
in there for an hour at a time. I was
Right.
thinking, he's probably like, she's really sick. Her stomach is really upset. But I would be in there in the quiet because I knew no one would come and bother me. And as I evolved and as my family and my husband kind of understood my sacred space that I needed, he made it a sanctuary for me, a room in my house that is specifically mine, that is painted violet with beautiful pictures, that opens up to the backyard with greenery, that I have candles and scents, that I have made my own pillows and a couch. But what I tell people, it doesn't have to be that major. It could be a corner in your house. It could be, a place where you pray, where you put your Bible and you have a chair. It could be the bathroom when you go and get in the bathtub. It could be sitting on a park bench and sitting in a local park or by the beach or by the water or a pond or something. It's what you make it. Anywhere that gives you peace, where you can get quiet and sit still.
And that's despite whatever noise or distractions that are there, because when you're out of your own space, your own sanctuary, so to speak, it is possible in the middle of New York City or Washington, D.C., to get quiet and still and just shut everything out.
Very true.
And go inside yourself, and listen, as you say.
Well, as I was waiting to do this interview, I had my nieces are here to observe this interview, and we were sitting in the car and we were talking and having a good time, but they didn't know I was meditating. As I'm talking to them. In my mind, I am clearing my mind to prepare, to de-stress. And so when you begin to practice it on a daily basis, it comes naturally. Where you breathe. Because meditation is, the only thing meditation is recognizing the breath. And what I tell people when I explain meditation, people don't realize how sacred the breath is.
Yeah.
When the breath is gone, your body is gone. So most people walk around holding their breath. They're holding their breath, they're clenching their teeth, they're holding their shoulders tight, their stomach is in knots because the energy and the breath is not flowing, because we are so worried about everything that's going on around us that we're just waiting for something to happen.
Well, Michelle, we're out of time, but I want to have you back because this was so insightful.
Thank you.
I think you're doing really God's work.
Thank you.
To help people in this world that is so stressed out, particularly by current events all over the world. We need people who are delivering the gifts and talents that you're bringing, and companies need help with this. So will you join us again?
I would love to.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, we're out of time, but thank you for tuning in to New Beginnings with Karin Delk. I want to thank again Michelle Madison McEwan of Madison McEwan and Associates for joining us and enlightening us on the power of meditation. Thank you.